Legendary actor John Carradine once said, "I have worked in a dozen of the greatest, and I have worked in a dozen of the worst. I only regret Billy the Kid versus Dracula." Yes, Billy the Kid versus Dracula is exactly as it sounds. It's not really that good, and it's one of those movies that makes you wonder why they ever thought it was a good idea in the first place. Hey guys, welcome back to the show. And yes, on this episode, I'm going to be talking about Billy the Kid versus Dracula. A clash of titans that I'm sure you've been dying to see. This movie was released in 1966 as part of a double feature with another matchup for the ages, Jesse James Meets Frankenstein's Daughter. Both of these movies were shot over the course of 8 days and were made as cheap as humanly possible. Do you know how I know a movie is going to be good? When a bat wearing a top hat shows up in the first 5 seconds. I mean, doesn't that tell you everything you need to know? Okay, honestly, the bat isn't really wearing a tiny little top hat. It just looks like that, but I'm just going to pretend like it is because it's just so much better that way. Dracula spots the Osters, a family of German immigrants sleeping outside, so he goes in for a bite but is scared off by a crucifix necklace. Now, you may be wondering what Dracula is doing in the Wild West to begin with. Well, I don't know. We never find that out. You know what? The story is dumb enough as it is. You can't expect things to be explained. I mean, come on. Out of all the nonsensical stuff in this movie, that's at the bottom of the list, I can tell you right now. Next thing you know, Dracula is in a stagecoach with 3 other people. I guess they picked him up because he looks so trustworthy. I mean, just look at that face.
You know, this is a little frightening, this traveling at night.
See, this is the type of stuff that happens when you're trying to make a movie really quickly. Like, hey guys, we gotta shoot this scene, but I think it's supposed to take place during the night. You know, there's a line in here. You know what, let's just shoot it right now, whatever. But should we at least take out the line about traveling at night? No, what are you, crazy? There's no time for that. We gotta get this done in a week. Anyways, the woman introduces herself and explains that the man sitting next to her is her brother, and that he's coming to look over her ranch and meet her 18-year-old daughter for the first time.
I have her portrait here. Would you like to see it?
She is very beautiful.
All right, just calm down there, Count. I mean, she's okay, but let's not get crazy.
May I see the picture once more?
Oh, certainly.
I mean, you're not uncomfortable with this yet? You don't think this is creepy as hell? Like, what else does this guy have to do? Ask the driver to stop so he can take the picture into the woods for 5 minutes? Anyways, after the stagecoach is ambushed and everyone is killed, Dracula is like, well, I'm just gonna pretend to be this guy so that I can meet his niece, Betty, who happens to be engaged to Billy the Kid. So Dracula just flies into the saloon and gets a room for the night. Anyways, the Osters show up and they're like, hey, that guy's a vampire. And the sheriff is like, all right, let me see your ID. Well, according to his papers, he's not a vampire. And see, this is why life was so hard back then. Identity theft was rampant. There was no 2-step verification. You want to be someone else? Fine. Just kill them and take their papers that state that they are them, and now you're them. Anyways, the Osters decide to stay at the hotel where Dracula is staying. Seems like an odd choice. And of course, he takes revenge by killing their daughter in the middle of the night. Because, you know, snitches get stitches. Those are the rules. So Billy is like, hey, sorry for your loss, but why don't you come work and stay at the ranch, which is being run by the guy you think killed your daughter? And then you can see him all the time. And that should help with the grieving and mourning and stuff.
I'm sorry. I thought that...
What's wrong, Billy?
Nothing.
I'll tell you what the problem is. Billy wasn't expecting to see me here, and he and his friends have been spreading rumors about me ever since I came into town, haven't you?
Well,
Billy, how dare you?
Yeah, how dare you? How dare you, Billy? He's been telling people that I buy my clothes at a funeral home thrift shop?
I want you to apologize to Uncle James right now.
Look, I'm sorry, Mr. Underhill, but...
No buts. He's also been telling people that I'm a vampire.
A vampire? How stupid.
That's what I thought at first,
Have you ever heard of anything so fantastic, Uncle James?
Maybe when I was 10 years old. I mean, really, Billy? Really? Well, what's next? Monsters under the bed? Seems to me like you can't trust anything this guy says. I mean, this is your boyfriend? Really? Okay. I mean, I guess we know where he got his nickname from, right? I mean, to each their own. I just thought you would want to date somebody a little bit more mature. So Eva is so concerned with Betty's safety that she puts wolfsbane around the windows. At least she says it's wolfsbane. Google says it looks nothing like this.
In my country, we put it around the windows at night. It keeps away evil things.
It's interesting that she didn't do this back at the hotel. I mean, they were concerned about the vampire back then, so I'm not pointing any fingers here, but maybe your daughter would still be alive. That night, Dracula tries to get in, but the window is closed, and he's like, glass! I didn't anticipate this. My powers are useless. Also, side note, Dracula seemingly has the ability to just vanish whenever he feels like it. And I'm telling you right now, if I had that ability, I would use it a lot. There's just a lot of human interaction that I don't care to have. And it's not that I'm not a friendly person, it's just that a lot of the time I'm just too tired to do small talk. I live in a building with other people, obviously, and I don't want to have to interact with people when I run into them when I'm coming or going, or you get into the elevator and there's somebody else in there and you gotta come up with the small talk. I hear it's supposed to warm up later this week. And then if you don't say anything and they don't say anything, then you're both just standing there in this weird silence. And it's weird because you're both thinking about the fact that it's completely silent. I can't be the only person who feels this way, right?
She's gonna have to stop talking about vampires and bats, that's all. It's so creepy.
Yes, that's what's creepy here. These people talking about bats and vampires. Not this guy and the way he's been staring at you. That's not creepy at all. The guys working on the ranch tell Billy that Jim saw a bat killing a lamb. And this guy, Dan, he's kind of a jerk about it, so Billy threatens to fire him. See, this was one of the best ways to ensure that you kept your job back then. If you kill your boss, there'll be no one to fire you. Right? I mean, kind of makes sense if you think about it. You won't have to meet with HR if there's no HR to meet with. Now, I know what you're thinking. That's just horrible. How could you do something like that to a child? Well, believe it or not, but Billy the Kid was not actually a kid. He was a grown adult. Just to be clear, in case you were thinking maybe he had that same condition that Robin Williams had in the movie Jack. I mean, just think about all the hilarious antics a kid would get into looking like an adult in the Wild West. That might actually be pretty funny, if you think about it, right? With all the shooting and drinking and gambling and prostitution. Like, you can just imagine. Well, hang on a second, lady. I didn't know what I was paying for. Probably couldn't make that movie today, but I'm telling you right now, in the 90s, for sure. So Betty gets fed up and she's like, hey, Eva, you gotta get this shit out of here. I mean, sure, it's not really causing a problem. And sure, this guy looks and dresses like a vampire. And sure, your daughter was killed by a vampire while this guy was staying in the same hotel in the room next to yours. But you gotta get over it. Eva is really upset by this, and she begs Betty to reconsider. But Betty has a way with words, and she lets Eva down in the nicest way possible.
Please.
No.
Billy goes to the doctor to get checked out, and she gives him some medicine, booze, and then to celebrate a job well done, she starts drinking too. And I actually support this. I think having a drink or two at the doctor's office should be allowed, nay, encouraged. I mean, you're going there because you're worried that something's wrong, right? Glass of whiskey might calm the nerves. I mean, what's with all the formality anyways? If anything, this should be a laid-back environment. Billy tells her about the lamb that had its throat cut, and she's like, you think it could be a vampire? I have no idea why she would jump to that conclusion, but it's hilarious nonetheless. Then she pulls out a book and starts reading about vampires. Looks like medical journals were much more interesting back then. See, now isn't this the ideal doctor visit? You go in because you think you broke some bones, and not only do you find out that you didn't break anything, but you get to knock back a shot and talk about vampires? I mean, it might not be everybody's cup of tea, but it's a lot better than some bad news in a bill. Back at the ranch, Dracula is like, hey, who the hell went into my room? That's my room. It's off limits. He accuses Betty, but she says it wasn't her. So then he accuses Eva. And can I just say, what are we doing here? Seriously, Dracula, is it your whole objective to drink Betty's blood and turn her into your vampire bride? So what's the holdup? She's right there. Just do it right now. What's the worst that could happen? What, Eva's gonna tell people? Well, by then it will be too late anyways. Let's get this road on the show. Show on the road. So Dracula is like, hey, your mom told me about some cave. Don't ask how we got on the subject. Just take me there, please. And Eva's like, oh crap, not a cave.
You clumsy idiot!
So Betty changes into her cave-dwelling clothes and takes Dracula to the abandoned silver mine. And Dracula is like, hey, I'm gonna go inside, come with me. And she's like, no. So Dracula goes in by himself. And again, why? Dude, you're completely alone with her. Just bite her right now. Billy shows up and he's like, what the hell is going on here? Where's your uncle? And Betty's like, isn't it obvious? He's inside of the abandoned mine.
What's he doing in an abandoned mine?
That's his business.
Yeah, Billy. He heard about the abandoned mine and wanted me to take him here, so I did. And then he asked me to go inside with him, and I said no. I have no idea why he wanted to go inside or why he wanted me to go with him, but that's none of my business. I don't ask those questions because I was raised to be polite. So Billy is like, hey, this whole thing is spooky. This guy shows up. He's super weird. There's a bat flying around. Now there's another lamb with its throat cut. And Jim said he saw a bat do it. So get your uncle to stand in front of a mirror and let's see what happens. Let's figure this out once and for all. Back at the house, Dracula is like, hey, Billy, you're fired from the ranch because I'm in charge and I don't like you. You'll never see Betty again. And Betty tells him that her and Billy are supposed to get married. And Dracula is like, that's it. You're not getting married. You're grounded. I'm locking you in your room with no phone and no Nintendo. That night, he goes into her room and bites her and then leaves to go set up a bed inside the mine. Why doesn't he just take her there that night? Who the hell knows? This movie is full of stupid shit like this. The next morning, they find Betty has been bit, and Billy takes her to the doctor.
I don't like it. I don't like it a bit.
Okay, so is she dead? Like, what the hell is this? Is she in some sort of trance? And then Billy is like, yeah, don't let her uncle get anywhere near her. Well, no shit, Billy. Maybe you should have thought of that before. I know you're supposed to be reformed now, but you used to be an outlaw. Take the gun out. Dracula goes to the doctor's to pick up Betty, but the doctor has a plan. She's going to point the mirror at him. Quite honestly, this reaction doesn't surprise me. A lot of people hate it when they get shown their own reflection or a picture that was taken when they weren't ready. And this guy, he's not in the most flattering situation either. I mean, he's trying to leave carrying an unconscious woman. That's never a good look. So for some reason, Betty is able to walk on her own now. Dracula is like, okay, go to sleep, and then when you wake up, you'll be undead. So I guess she's not undead yet. He just bit her, and now she's in a trance. Who knows? This is never explained. And I still don't understand why he needed a cave to do this in. I mean, you could have just done this back at the house. She was already in bed. Why did you need this bed? What's so special about it? And you mean to tell me this guy lugged a mattress all the way to this cave? See, this is why I could never be a vampire. It's just too much work. Just give me the invisibility thing so that I can avoid people and I'm good.
Sleep. Sleep.
So Billy gets there, and this is one of the more awkward fight scenes that I've seen, which is actually good because it adds entertainment in that way. And here's the thing about fighting Dracula. Bullets don't hurt him.
Your bullets can't hurt me.
Exactly. And this is a perfect example as to why it's a good idea to constantly sharpen your improv skills. Because you never know when a situation like this is going to pop up and you have to think quick on your feet. Like Billy here.
You did that.
So Billy drives a silver scalpel through Dracula's heart, and this I don't understand. The bat flies out of the cave and dies, but Dracula's body is still in the cave. I thought Dracula shapeshifted into the bat, so how can there be two bodies at the same time? I don't know. I admit I'm not extremely well versed in the lore, but this just seems weird. And now Betty wakes up because I guess the vampire spell is broken. Now, Mrs. Oster was played by Virginia Christine, and it was around this time that she also started starring in Folgers Coffee TV commercials as Mrs. Olson. And these commercials went on for over 20 years. Someone made a post on IMDb claiming that several times throughout this movie, she is referred to as Mrs. Olson by mistake, which would be really funny, but I went through this movie as well as the script looking for this, and I couldn't find a single instance of this actually happening. Also, after the stagecoach is attacked near the beginning of the movie, there's a shot here where you can clearly see a crew member operating the bat, which is kind of funny. And you know, this movie really shows that leaving a life of crime behind can actually really suck. I mean, Billy the Kid was out there living his life as an outlaw, robbing, hurting, killing people, and then he decided to leave it all behind, you know, go legit, get a job, get married. And look what happened. Dracula shows up, steals his fiancée, he's fighting co-workers, he loses his job, at one point he gets arrested for just defending himself. Seems like life was a lot easier when he was just out there taking whatever he wanted. I want to thank all of my supporters on Buy Me a Coffee, Patreon, and YouTube. I want to thank all of you for tuning in once again. But that's pretty much it for this one, and I'll see you all next time. Oh, and by the way, Billy, I don't get my clothes at a funeral home thrift shop. I go to the widows directly and offer them 50 cents for all of their dead husband's clothes. Which I think is very fair. I mean, what else are they going to do with the clothes, right? And yeah, sometimes they don't fit perfectly, but I think that you're just a little bit jealous that you haven't figured out a way to be this stylish for 50 cents. Okay, honestly, the bat isn't really wearing a tiny little top hat. It just looks like that, but I'm just going to pretend like it is because it's just so much better that way. The movie's already pretty stupid. I don't think this makes it actually, I think this makes it better, you know, because at least with that, you know, you got a tongue-in-cheek element at play.